because the American white power structure is engineering a situation where the natural voice of the biological black woman will be permanently silenced and replaced with artificial women, biological men, who will be standing in and speaking as if they're real black women. And the threat in this is the fact that what really matters to black women will never be discussed in the public forum because the government can control the narrative of the black woman by using these biological men disguised as women. First of all, I want to make sure people understand what I perceive to be the clear threat in this instance. And I don't know if you can remember, about a year ago, I was on Fox Soul with the Tammy Mack show, and she had a conversation on black male-female relationships. It was myself and another biological male. It was a biological female, and the other person who I thought was a biological female was a artificial woman, meaning he's a biological male. Tammy Mack nor her producers warned us that it would not be two women, two biological women, and two biological men. She snuck the transgender in and didn't tell us. Why would a black woman be having a biological male, AKA artificial woman, discussing women's issues, black women's issues, as if he were a woman? I said then that black women better stand up and speak out against this, because the American white power structure is engineering a situation where the natural voice of the biological black woman will be permanently silenced and replaced with artificial women, biological men, who will be standing in and speaking as if they're real black women. And the threat in this is the fact that what really matters to black women will never be discussed in the public forum because the government can control the narrative of the black woman by using these biological men disguised as women. So what Just Hilarious is doing is important. It's critical that it gets done. We're not going to allow her to get canceled. She's doing the right thing. A biological man can never be a biological woman. He will never get a menses. His breast will never develop milk. He will never carry a child. Last time I checked, women have an XX chromosome. Men have an XY, if I'm not mistaken. It doesn't matter how much sexual reassignment surgery you get. You will never have a double X chromosome. Men cannot be women. They can only be made to look like them. Women cannot be men. They can only be made to look like them. But here's the difference. I don't really see biological women living as artificial men trying to speak for black men. I don't see that. I'm seeing biological men living as artificial women trying to speak for black women. And I think the reason why this agenda is in play is black women, unfortunately, not because there's anything wrong with her, but because of the oppression of black men, she's the leading political voice. The black woman is the most educated in our community. The black woman is the most financially stable in our community. So from the perspective of the white power structure, the way that they're seeing, we've already neutralized black men as much as we can for now. We now got to work on these black women who are becoming increasingly more militant and politically conscious. They see the woke black woman as a threat now. They used her to subdue the man. Now we got to subdue her. So what we're going to do is use these artificial women, these biological men disguised as black women, and we're going to let them be the mouthpiece so we can control the narrative. I hope sisters recognize how important what Just Hilarious is doing. You cannot let the white power structure silence your voice and replace you with biological men disguised as women. The last point I want to say on this issue with Just Hilarious as it relates to the racist agenda to replace the authentic biological black woman's voice with an artificial biological man's voice disguised as a black woman. Black women have to take some responsibility for this because black women, many of them, were open proponents of homosexuality. Black women thought it was cute. They thought it was funny. They have black male friends. They hang out with black gay men. The reason black women got to be held partially responsible for this transgender issue where they want to silence their voice with an artificial woman's voice is if you supported homosexuality as much as black women did, you allow black men to go to the edge of the diving board. Now he wants to jump off the diving board into the water. He says, I no longer want to just be gay or act as a woman. I want to live as a woman. That's the leap that was made from homosexuality to transgender. So although I'm standing in solidarity with my black queens, I need them to understand y'all helped give birth to this biological man reborn as artificial black woman phenomena that the government is now going to try to use to silence your voice. Black women helped encourage this move. They didn't know it would lead to this, but I need them to see how not looking long enough or being visionary enough, looking at the long-term consequences of the stuff that we support, you actually provided the momentum for the transition from homosexual to artificial woman. I think the reason a lot of black women were comfortable with black gay males is, number one, they accepted them. The black gay male was able to understand them in a way that they wish the heterosexual black male would. Black women have a need to be accepted and honored by black men. For women who could not get that from a heterosexual, they substituted it socially for the homosexual. In other words, a black woman wants a close relationship with her father. She can't find a black man to have that type of intimacy with, not sexually, but psychologically. But the gay black male can do that for her. The black woman needs a man to talk her issues through. She can't talk about the rape with her dad. He don't understand. She can't talk about the molestation with her brother or her uncle. She can do it with the gay black man. So I believe the gay black man for the black woman became a substitute upon which she could thrust a lot of her internal issues that she never felt comfortable with enough discussing with heterosexual male. And it's not the fact that he's gay. It's the fact that he can take her perspective better because he's trying to be her. That agenda by Governor DeSantis, this new Florida state mandate educational curriculum requirement that the enslavement of African people be treated as if it was a benevolent institution that afforded us some useful skills is absolutely disrespectful. It is outright untrue. It is an insult to African people. And I'm not surprised that they're doing this, because one thing about white people, when they smell blood, they go for the kill. And America is more anti-black today than any time since the 1960s. So if black people are going to stand by and let white people trample all over their self-respect and their dignity and their human rights, that's exactly what they're going to do. But I also think we have to keep an eye on the White House, because I find it interesting that President Joe Biden hasn't said much or done much about this. Although education is not a federal right, it is not a constitutional right, but it is a state right. And as a state right, the federal government has an obligation to make sure the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause is upheld wherever the states guarantee a right to a free education. So I am of the position that the slanderous inclusion of slavery as having been beneficial because it taught skills which is easily refutable as an untruth, I believe that that could be fought against. I believe that that could be struck down because it is harmful and it is dangerous to teach that to black children. In fact, it does the very thing that the 1954 Brown versus Board of Education Supreme Court decision sought to undo, and that was to eliminate the harm caused to black children by segregation. Now you have harm being caused to black children by virtue of this new mandated curriculum. So I'm wondering why the Justice Department, I'm wondering why the Secretary of State, I'm wondering why President Joe Biden himself has not taken this up as a 14th Amendment issue. In fact, what the president could do with the stroke of a pen is tell Governor DeSantis and any other governor in America where there is a law that forbids the teaching of slavery or racism, if this is what you want to do, if you want to teach that slavery was beneficial because it taught skills, then guess what? We're going to cut all your federal funding. We're going to cut your special ed money. We're going to cut your Title I money. We're going to cut your JROTC money. We're going to cut all of your federal money because this is discriminatory education, which is not allowed under the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause. I think there's a possibility of the standard becoming nationwide. We already have a growing standard where states are not allowing slavery to be taught and they're not allowing racism to be taught. So you already see that the climate is already there. As far as I'm concerned, it's pretty much a standard anyway. But again, I believe that the Democratic Party is co-signing this behavior by not pushing back with threats with regard to elimination of federal funding. Their funds should be snatched if this is what they want to do.
Please tell me what hostile personality disorder is and why you believe it's a key contributor to the crisis of high blood pressure amongst Black people in America.
Hypertension is a big issue. It's a top 10 killer for Black people. Hostile personality disorder, in my opinion, is an outgrowth of that hypertension. And it speaks to the tension and the anger and the negativity that and hostility that Black people have towards one another. I think a lot of times when we see each other, when we engage each other, when we conversate with each other, we do so with an expectation of disrespect. We do so with an expectation of disagreement. We do so with an expectation of confrontation. So when Black people disagree with each other, automatically our blood begins to boil, our pressure begins to rise, because that environment is one that we've seen so many times lead to conflict and casualty. And I think there's a lot of brothers and sisters out there who are contributing to their very own high blood pressure by constantly walking around with this hostile personality disorder that I don't think is necessary. If you have to go to war, then your body will be prepared to go to war at that moment. But I don't think you should walk around with the expectation and presumption that if you have to have a disagreement with a Black person, it can't be respectful and that it has to lead to conflict. So I think hostile personality disorder is a big problem in the Black community. Poverty will only get worse for Black people. I think it's going to get worse for everyone. But when America catches a cold, we get the flu. We have to understand poverty is absolutely essential for capitalism to survive. In order for capitalism to survive, you got to have a large, exploitable population of free laborers. If there's no broke people to slave for the corporations can't get rich. The whole idea behind capitalism is you make people work for pennies while you rake in millions. And because of that, for that reason, there will always be poverty. But the reason it's going to grow now more than ever in the past is, number one, we have artificial intelligence coming. And with artificial intelligence, you're going to see the elimination of a lot of jobs that otherwise help Black people take care of their bills. I read recently McDonald's laying off thousands of people, Walmart laying off thousands of people, Microsoft laying off thousands of people, Google even laid off thousands of people. So when I look at artificial intelligence and when I look at the advance of technology, it appears that it's going to lead to an ever shrinking, a smaller market for employment. And so I think Black people need to really start thinking about this right now and get ahead of it before it's too late. And I also think this poverty is being engineered as well, because poverty is one of the most effective weapons you can use to keep down population, to keep up crime, to keep up political disorganization. Impoverished communities are rarely effective politically. Rarely, because why? They're overly consumed with their day-to-day needs being met. So I think a lot of it is being engineered. You know, in the Black community in particular, we know that they came into our community and destroyed the economic foundation, the industrial building trades back in the 1970s. They induced the poverty to give rise to the mass incarceration system in the single-parented, female-headed household. So I think a lot of it is engineered, but most of it is a byproduct of capitalism. And one of the things I try to get Black people to see and to understand, capitalism only worked because they had a 500-year head start through our enslavement. Slavery was the original capital. We were the original investment. We was the original stock. So of course capitalism looks good because you're not looking at it from the perspective that it got a 500-year head start by free labor of African people. Capitalism is not a system for humanity. Why would you want individuals to dominate the economy that everybody has to use in order to live? Capitalism is exploitation, and poverty is one of its side effects.
Please join my Telegram group by going to the description box, click on the Telegram link, join us for us to talk about the well-being of Africa and Africans in diaspora. If today is your first time coming to this channel, then don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification button so that anytime I upload any great content, you will be notified. I'm always your guy, De-Graft Amoako. Thanks for watching.